An intellectual disability is characterized by significant limitations in intellectual functioning as well as in adaptive behavior that affects everyday social and practical skills. Intellectual disabilities typically appear in children during the developmental period. This period lasts from the age of birth to 18 years old. An intellectual disability is a specific type of developmental delay. Developmental delay is a broad term that addresses impairments including physical, language, learning, and behavior. Within that, intellectual disability goes beyond an academic IQ score to focus on the area of adaptive functioning. There are some specific characteristics that may appear in a child with an intellectual disability. These characteristics include low academic performance, learning at a slower pace than peers, difficulty with comprehension, difficulty with abstract thinking, slowly developing language, clumsiness, and difficulty with following the rules. There are prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal causes of ID. Prenatal causes include genetic syndromes, brain malformation, and environmental influences. Perinatal influences include labor and delivery complications, and postnatal causes include traumatic brain injury, infections, and seizure disorder. A child with an intellectual disability is 3 to 4 times more likely to also have a behavior disorder when compared to a typically developing child. Some research suggests that these behavior disorders can lead to poorer adaptive outcomes in the long run than if the intellectual disability mostly manifests itself cognitively. One evidence-based practice for students with intellectual disabilities is the use of visual activity schedules. Visual activity schedules are a strategy to provide a learner with a sequence of visual cues which form a prompt in order to follow a sequence of events independently. These cues can aid the learner in daily living, vocational, leisure, academic, and navigation purposes. Visual activity schedules are common tools used for students with intellectual disabilities and are grounded in research. One review of literature completed in 2016 to determine if these schedules are evidence-based discovered 14 conducted acceptable studies to prove the evidence base of this tool. Additionally, the scope of those who can benefit from these types of visual schedules is wide. Visual activity schedules have proven effective with preschool students in early intervention programs, middle school students learning vocational skills, and adults living in group homes. The research shows that visual activity schedules can be an effective means to help those with IED reach independence. When used with school-age children in a school setting, visual activity schedules are mostly used to guide students through scheduled activities throughout their day. These schedules can include photographs of specific teachers or places in the school, line drawings, or written words. Overwhelmingly, pictures have shown to be the most effective type of symbol used in these schedules. The research behind the evidence-based practice of providing visual activity schedule also discovered major categories of behavior outcomes related to the schedules. The categories affected by this include increase in engagement in non-task behaviors, decrease in disruptive behaviors or self-injury, learning self-scheduling, and independent task transitions. There are also EBPs for students with ID focused on the 5 essential reading components. One of these evidence-based practices related to vocabulary, comprehension, and sight word identification is mass trial training. Mass trial training involves teaching one model or example at a time with nothing else interspersed while taking short pauses between each example. Mass trial training works by giving the teacher control in the learning situation. The teacher prepares a set of problems to present one at a time. The problems are then presented in a sequence. The students respond or fail to respond, and the teacher responds appropriately to correct or praise. This leads to a cumulative effect of learning the new skill. Some scholars criticize mass trial training as an EBP for learners with ID. The criticisms of mass trial training include inflexibility, frequent incorrect implementation, focus on rote response, and teacher-centeredness. These criticizers suggest use of incidental instruction instead, which focuses more on environment to produce response. Another area of EBP for learners with ID is transition planning. As students with ID begin to think about moving from high school into the real world, they must be equipped to make this transition. The National Technical Assistance Center on Transition suggests a variety of EBP published curricula to address this transition. Some EBP curriculums that help address the area of transition planning include the self-directed IEP, self-advocacy strategy, whose future is it anyway, and personal futures planning model. The NTACT noted in their study of these curriculums that they were implemented with students from other disability categories such as ADHD and autism as well. will focus specifically on the self-directed IEP. This curriculum has been studied to be implemented in a variety of settings, from the general education elementary setting to the self-contained high school classroom. It receives its evidence base from 2 high-quality group studies, 3 acceptable group studies, and 5 acceptable quality single-subject studies. The self-directed IEP curriculum includes instruction about participating in IEP meetings, transition planning portions, leading IEP meetings, self-determination skills, and transitional awareness. Each of these topics is important to learners with IED as they learn the tools to take control of their own learning and consider their post-schooling future. This curriculum is broken into 4 separate units. As stated, these units help students with intellectual disabilities learn about the IEP meeting process and practice skills needed to be an active member of their IEP team. The students are required to participate in 5 mock IEP meetings as well as 1 true IEP meeting using the learned skills. Modern education has come far in addressing learners with intellectual disabilities. As early as the middle of the 20th century, many of these students received little to no opportunities to receive meaningful educational opportunities. Learners with IED provide challenges to special educators, making the identification and implementation of EBPs very important. Researchers continue to determine EBPs for individuals with IED. Research has been able to discover practices that cover all academic areas. A big area that needs improvement is the way scholars define evidence-based practice in literature. Clear definitions of the terminology will help as educators work to implement effective EBPs for those with intellectual disabilities.